Yesterday, I indeed saw video cards reporting on a leaked reference cooler for at least one of the top Navi 31 models, as originally leaked by 9550 Pro on Twitter. And I'll be honest, at first, I really just wasn't feeling rushed to talk about this in some piece of content. Frankly, I was thinking, AMD's got to show a reveal that's only a few days away, and I do think that we know enough to know how AMD is generally going to compete with Lovelace this generation without trying to rush out something that obsesses over little details right before we know everything. In fact, I really do think you guys know what you need to know about how RDNA 3 is going to compete with Lovelace. If you've been following the constant trickle of information I've been dropping in podcasts on my channel and other people like Angstronomics as well. Actually, I was just also working on a really big Intel leak that I think has more unknown information that you guys would find interesting too. However, as always, I'm keeping my ear to the rail, and I decided to put out some feelers and see if any of the reluctant AMD sources I have that don't always tell me things will be willing to divulge some information, and well, they did. And in fact, it was so much that I do feel it warranted a video. And so here we are. I'm going to tell you what you can expect in terms of Navi 31 performance, cooling, launch volume, how AIBs are designing their coolers, and about other follow-up products launching in the RDNA 3 family as well. I was reluctant, but there's definitely enough here to put out a video. So anyways, first things first, I am told that basically everything on this video cards page is correct. That goes for the shader count between these models, the memory configurations, and even the naming. AMD is, I am told, deciding to call the top card for now the 7900 XTX, and then the 7900 XT is going to be argued as the same tier of successor as the 6900 XT. And the reason they're not calling the top card a 7950 XT, instead going with the XTX nomenclature, is they want to reserve the 50 branding for when they do a refresh, and they do want to leave room above a 7900 XTX, which they see as a more premium and expensive to make product than what the 6900 XT was. They want to leave room for something stronger down the line, but they think right now this is what consumers want, a reasonable enthusiast set of graphics cards, not something that throws everything out the window to try to get the crown right away. I have to say, this pretty much exactly lines up with the things Angstronomics said months ago, backing up what I've been trying to tell a lot of people on Twitter and in the YouTube comments, that I think you guys mostly know what you need to know. And that even goes for things that I've said about power consumption, with many people assuming AMD was going to have the reference cards use a boatload of energy. I've been saying that based on what I am hearing, this thing will use 375 watts at most for the initial at least, reference flagship, having a 2x8 pin setup. Yeah, well, let's get into the stuff that's not on this video cards page. Let me tell you about Navi 31's coolers, power consumption, and even a bit about its launch and performance characteristics. So, the reference cooler for the 7900 XTX is at or below 11.5 inches in length. It's 2.5 slots, which you can see in that video cards picture, but I'm just confirming that your eyes aren't deceiving you. This is about the size of the card. It's a little bigger than like a 6900 XT, but it should fit into most cases that have a 6900 or 6800 XT, and it is indeed just powered by 2x8 pins. What they were showing on video cards, based on what I'm told, was not the XT. It is the XTX. Even the XTX just needs 2x8 pins, at least for the reference design. And that's because it has a thermal board power of around 350 watts. Not exactly, but around there. And the reference 7900 XT has a thermal board power of around 300 watts. Now, the reason so many things have been hard to confirm until the last minute for Navi 31, and like when it comes to things like clock speed and exact thermal design, is AMD has yet to fully brief partners and unlock the cards for testing. After the November 3rd reveal is when AMD will allow final partner validation to begin, which does mean that consumers should expect a late November or early December launch, and most or all reference cooler designs to be used in those initial shipments, and AIB coolers that are more different than just a different sticker put on a reference cooler. Those will come later. And when they do come, I am told that AIBs are preparing 3x8 pin models that basically use a modified version of the 4-slot 4090 coolers that you see all over the place right now, and do go above 450 watts on occasion. There is headroom to be pushed above the reference design, and AIBs want to take advantage of this for a couple of reasons. Two, of course, try to ask for more money for these higher clocked models if they can, and also because they don't think they're going to have a lot of 4090s to sell for the rest of the year. They designed all of these elaborate coolers, and so they're just going to use them on RDNA 3, whether it makes sense or not. But I do believe there's some headroom there. But the fact is, AMD thinks people want reasonable enthusiast cards. That's what they've decided the game plan should be, to take market share in quarter four, or try to take market share. And if AIBs want to make some 4090 size thing that goes for the performance crown at the expense of cost and power consumption, they'll do that, and they can handle the warranties. AMD just wants to make a standard type reference design like they have been doing, well, forever. Anyways, though, what you should expect then out of performance of the reference, underlined here, reference model, is that it isn't probably going to beat the 4090 in 4K raster. But AMD does plan to launch XX50 refresh models eventually, and I do have to say that there is a lot of room for higher clocks, faster memory, and more infinity cache for some hypothetical 7950 XTX. And you know, let's be honest about this. We already know that AMD has publicly confirmed that RDNA 3 will bring at least a 50% increase in performance per watt. And so if we assume that they're sandbagging for the optimistic calculations, which they certainly could be, they do all the time, then I think they could get pretty damn close to 4090 raster performance on paper. It's all there. If they have like a 350 watt card with a 60% efficiency increase, and they're not wildly outside of their optimal efficiency curve, which based on what I'm hearing about there being like 500 watt AIB cards, I assume that they are pretty close to the efficiency curve, then I think it's totally reasonable to expect AMD could trade blows with the 4090 and raster, and it might just depend on the resolution or game on which one wins. But, you know, even if we are conservative and we assume that the 7900 XTX is outside of the efficiency curve, maybe more like 40%, and then maybe it's clocked lower than expected at the top, it still should get pretty close to the 4090, I think, in 1440p performance when you consider the driver overhead issue NVIDIA's dealing with. So at the end of the day, what I'm saying when it comes to performance is people really should expect AMD to at least be close or trade blows or win depending on the situation in raster performance. But don't expect AMD with this initial reference design to blow NVIDIA out of the water in raster performance, and definitely don't expect them to win ray tracing. However, it's still kind of a big question mark what's going to happen with those AIB models. I mean, going from like 350 watts to like 500 watts in some of the AIB models, I just don't know how much higher they will be clocked. And I do think some of them could just directly take on the 4090, but AMD doesn't want to launch some, PlayStation 5 sized reference model to do that. They're going to let the AIBs do that. And then also, please do remember that AMD is using 20 gigabit per second GDDR6 on the 7900 XTX. 24 gigabit, 20% higher bandwidth is already out. They're just not using it. And 27 gigabit per second is around the corner. They could bring over 30% more bandwidth, and they could even stack infinity cache on top of it, which from what I'm hearing, they're not with the initial models to keep costs down. What I'm saying is I don't know how much they'll be able to benefit in performance by massively increasing bandwidth and thermal board power for a hypothetical 7950 XTX. But what I do know is that if they went for it, they could double the amount of infinity cache, they could have over 30% more bandwidth, and 50% more power consumption. That is a lot of headroom to have something at least one tier above what they have now. They're just not pushing it to the limit at launch because they don't think that's what consumers want. But okay, so AMD has a more reasonable set of flagship cards for the initial launch of RDNA 3. What will they be priced like? How many of them will be available for sale in quarter four? And, well, I'm going to cover all of that and much more about RDNA 3, but first, an ad from a sponsor. What do you think about this? Nothing, really? Yeah. Well, whether you're looking for a cool portable gaming monitor or a new smartwatch like the TicWatch E3 I'm wearing right here, you can find all of these products on AliExpress. This piece of content is sponsored by AliExpress. AliExpress is a feather everyone should have in their online shopping cap for looking for the most competitive pricing for clothing, electronics, do-it-yourself parts, and really much more. And you really shouldn't just go to AliExpress to find, well, a cool new smartwatch like I have. You should also go there to find interesting products you can't really find anywhere else. So whatever you want, whether it's something cool or just something that you can find anywhere else, but you want to try to find it cheaper, because why pay more if you don't have to? Make sure you go to AliExpress between November 1st and November 12th for their special sales event. And if you do, use the offer codes on screen and click the links in the description to look for these products and also to support Moore's Law is Dead. Clicking on these links and using these offer codes really does help Moore's Law is Dead tremendously, in addition to helping you find the best pricing and the most interesting versions of various electronics and other products online. Try out AliExpress today. So, like I said before the break, AIBs are preparing versions of the coolers they designed for the 4090s for extravagant RDNA 3 flagship cards that they want to charge around 4090 pricing for, because, well, they're not going to be able to sell as many 4090s this holiday season as they were hoping to. You see, Nvidia had a very big, week one supply of the 4090, and then it got good reviews, got mind share. Reviewers said pretty great things about it, and everyone tried to buy it, and then it sold out. Sold out quicker than I am told AIBs were expecting, and Nvidia saw this and said, okay, well, we don't need to worry. Lovelace will sell as many of them as we hit into the market, but we still have all this ampere oversupply. Let's throttle it. And Nvidia is throttling artificially RTX 4090 supply to try to push consumers to buy up their ampere overstock. Now, this is an issue AMD is also dealing with. They also have too many RX 6000 cards than they would ideally want to have on the market before a new generation launches. But the issue isn't as big, and they seem to think they can get through most of it by Q1 with aggressive pricing, where they are working with bigger retailers through rebates to pretty much sell RX 6000 series cards at cost. And, well, I don't blame them for thinking they'll be able to sell these out by the end of this quarter. When you have RX 6700 XTs going for $375 or lower on Newegg, I think that this is what all budget builds should pretty much be buying right now. These are the budget high-end cards that have hit this quarter, not Alchemist, sub $375 6700 XTs with reliable drivers. And so, well, AMD is doing special rebates, and they are selling these cards at cost to try to get rid of them in order to get market share, while Nvidia is a little more stingy with how they trickle out ampere cards and the pricing they try to maintain with them. They don't have as much of an issue. Nvidia is trying to position all of Lovelace above $1,200 for a reason. I mean, heck, they tried to sell you what was effectively a 4070 or 4060 Ti even for $900 and then canceled it. Nvidia is doing this because they feel like they have to. AMD has to keep their products premium for this quarter, but I don't think they have to keep prices above $1,500 or $1,200. I think they can afford to try to keep prices above just $900 and $1,000. And so I guess what I'm saying is, what I'm dancing around saying is that if AMD wants to, they have more room to be aggressive and go for high-end pricing on some of their launch products than Nvidia does, where Nvidia has to keep everything at God-tier pricing, because if they don't, they'll be competing with above $1,000 3090 Ti's. What I'm hearing, though, is the 7900 XTX will be premium, but it will undercut the 4090. I just don't know by how much. We'll have to see what the exact final performance is, but basically expect AMD to raise prices with that over the 6950 XT, but still undercut the 4090. The 7900 XT, I am told, though, may be a different story. They may be more aggressive with that, but it's not finalized. I really can't say more than that. What I can say is that I would just remind everybody that the 7900 XT, even though it is cut down from the 7900 XTX, should still be 85 to 90% the performance of that 7900 XT that should trade blows with the 4090 and raster. And then will also have 4 gigabytes more RAM than the 4080 16 gigabyte has, and also have a lower TDP. be able to fit in standard cases. The 4080 is expected to have almost as many ridiculous oversized coolers that cause headaches for builders as the 4090 will. So there are a lot of advantages in the 7900 XT camp. It'll likely be a little stronger than the 4080. It will use less energy. It will be smaller. And that means even if they price it at $1,000, the same price as the 6900 XT, which I think they could afford to, because remember, it is a little cut down this time compared to what the 6900 XT is, despite using 5 nanometer for part of its silicon. I really think they could make an example of what Nvidia is trying to do here, and they could say, it fits in your case, it's stronger, it has more VRAM, and you know what, it's not going to burn your house down. This is the part where I go, AMD, I know, and there are some people I talk to who work with AMD that say they just don't expect AMD to be aggressive with pricing ever anymore. You really have a chance here. I understand that the 7900 XT is a flagship, that it probably can be fairly priced at $1,200, $1,300, $1,400 or something, but the 7900 XT, I'm sure you're still making good profits at $1,000. And you could just really humiliate the 4080 in a time where Nvidia is getting a lot of bad press. When the iron's hot, hammer it harder, AMD. Hammer it harder. But again, I can't promise they will be aggressive with 7900 XT pricing. We're just going to have to see. I only know that they could if they wanted to be, and there's a chance they will be. But if they do, I also think that they will have the volume to back up that aggressive pricing. So let me throw this other quote on screen here. I am told that while you shouldn't expect Navi 31 products to be as much of a huge day one launch as the 4090 was, that the supply will be more consistently coming week over week with Navi 31, and that by the end of quarter 4, even though, again, day one will probably not have as much stock as the 4090, that they should have shipped as many, if not more, cards than Nvidia has with Lovelace, meaning that they are, as far as I'm hearing, planning to take market share. Now, again, some would say, well, that means they'll probably be really aggressive with their pricing. I don't know. Maybe the 4090 can't be kept in stock. So maybe AMD goes, if we're less aggressive in pricing, we're pretty sure this thing is still going to sell out anyways because Nvidia is forced to artificially throttle supply to get rid of Ampere. We're just going to have to see how that shakes out. But do know, AMD has room here to price their products aggressively compared to Nvidia. Even if it's not that aggressive compared to previous gen pricing or previous gen MSRP pricing, because of just how absurd Lovelace is. And if they do it, they have the volume. They will be shipping, I think, at least as many cards this quarter as Nvidia is with Lovelace. And so that's some excitedly good news. And that's pretty much the end of the new information that I can convey to you guys today in this video. To summarize, AMD, I'm confident they can make a gigantic splash with RDNA 3 this holiday season if they want to. They have a large set of volume secured for launch. They're going to keep using it for RDNA 3, and they have a product line that, well, it doesn't sound like it's going to go for taking the crown at everything at first. They can do that next year. They can double the Infinity cache. They can massively increase bandwidth, and they can increase power consumption by like 50% and go toe-to-toe with a 4090 or even a 4090 Ti. But that's not what they want to do right now. Right now, what AMD wants to do with the reference models is have a product that is the same size, same rough power consumption levels as previous gen flagships, so that you can get something that you know will fit in your case without burning your house down. A product where you don't need to worry about if the new connectors are safe to use, which I will say that this upcoming broken silicon, we're going to have a large discussion, me and Dan, about that 12-volt power connector issue that Nvidia has. Because I'm sorry, guys, from what I am hearing, yes, it's probably mostly a bad batch of adapters that were just sent to some people with some graphics cards that weren't sent to others. But I don't think it's as simple as saying it's just the adapters. Whatever Nvidia claims, if it was just a bad batch of adapters, I don't know why they would let this turn into the PR nightmare it is becoming. If you're someone in Nvidia marketing, I don't think you just sit there and go, oh, well, everyone's starting to do their own ad hoc testing and making videos with scary thumbnails. Let's just let them do that for weeks and not say anything. If it was just the adapters, or at the very least, let me say, if Nvidia was confident it was just the adapters, I don't think Jensen Huang would have flown to Taiwan over it like I reported on Twitter, and I do not think they would still be quiet about it. Maybe when this video drops, Nvidia will have already announced a statement, but even up until now, it's taken too long. Something is wrong, I think, or at least they think something could be wrong. Besides just the adapters, maybe there is a situation where the ports on the 4090s are at a within tolerance, but at a tolerance range that's kind of at the edges of where cheaper adapters are at their tolerance range, and that's making some disconnect there. Something else is off, and with all of that bad press it's getting, I just feel like if AMD went for the kill here, they could hit Nvidia while they're down and take some mind share that they've been desperate to get for generations. But again, we'll just have to see what they announce exactly on Thursday. We'll be talking about all of that stuff with Nvidia's products on the X Broken Silicon, in addition to some clarifications about the 10-core 7800X rumors out there. Technically, I only confirmed that they are testing 10-core models, and AMD's already launched 10-core Zen 3 models. I feel like that story is... We'll get to it in upcoming content, in addition to other big Intel leaks that I'll be getting to as well. I'm starting to ramble here. I really do hope you enjoyed this video. Make sure you're subscribed to the Moore's Law is Dead YouTube channel and ring the bell button so you don't miss that upcoming content. And if you have the extra money, support us on Patreon. You will get to ask me and Dan questions of the upcoming Broken Silicon. You will be able to get access to the die shrink dropping this week only to patrons. There's all of this other exclusive content out there for you too. If you support us, we cannot do this without our patrons. But otherwise, to everybody who made it this far, thank you for watching.